His fingers smashed the remote into the coffee table. The screen erupted into static as the recorder in the corner blinked on by itself. The family portrait teetered and crashed face down, glass spiderwebbing across the rug. A single page slipped from the frame and fluttered toward the floor, while the tape door slowly swung open. Air vibrated with a wrongness nobody named. Julia crossed to the hearth, bare feet whispering over the rug as she crouched, scooping up shattered glass with a dish towel. She slid the frame back into its groove, smoothing the photograph until it sat level again. A family smile marred only by the page now resting on the ottoman. The recorder hummed softly, a blue light pulsing like a slow heartbeat. She glanced at it and, with a shrug meant to steady the room, reached for the remote beside the scattered magazines. Kyle, bracing the coffee table with both palms, breathed out and steadied the remote. Still there, he murmured, sending a small wave of calm through the air. At once their daughter skipped in from the hallway, dragging a small dinosaur toy through the spill of static without so much as a glance upward, and kicked off the thick socks she'd worn all morning. "Lunch in 10. Julia called toward the kitchen, hands already reaching for the kettle. In the window, the afternoon light lay flat across the counter, settling in the well-worn paths of their routine. Kyle's fingers hovered over the recorder, remembering how not long after the wedding he'd promised to keep this house safe, this room a harbor unmarred by the outside. He reached for the remote again, thumbs finding the familiar buttons, easing a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Nora came down the stairs, dragging the crate of winter clothes behind her. Morning light in the kitchen was thin. The radio clicked between stations while Jake leaned on the counter, sleeves rolled above the familiar bruise near his wrist. He flipped a mug with calloused fingers, the scrape of ceramic on enamel sharp in the tight space. "You can set that there," he said without looking up, nodding toward the crate. Nora kicked it aside into a mound near the sink. Water splashed from her sleeve. Jake stiffened just enough that the bruise pulsed redder. She went straight for the board where the household list hung, drying dishes, dog food, everything scratched in black marker. Nothing new. Nora pointed to the blank space beneath notes. "You haven't written a word in a week. I'm not asking for an essay, Jake. Just something that doesn't feel like this is some waiting room." First time he met her eyes without turning away. "I know the silence has been louder than the dishes," he said, his mouth twisting like he was chewing on words. "I didn't mean to make it feel like a wall." Nora tightened her fingers around the corner of the list. "It's not just silence. It's the way you leave the garage door open, but won't let me look inside. The way you schedule everything except the missing pieces." Jake exhaled raggedly. "You already know I'm not hiding something that would hurt you on purpose. But I'm not ready for the whole thing yet. After what happened, the quiet was supposed to keep us safe. It didn't. It just kept me from admitting I was afraid." His voice dropped. "I can't fix it with another promise. I can only tell you there's still stuff behind the everyday, papers, receipts, that I plan on sorting out. Not because I want to bury it, but because I can't let you see the mess until I'm respectful enough to do it with you, not in front of you." Nora's jaw clenched. "So you keep me waiting? The silence isn't protection. It's proof you don't trust me with it." He flicked a paper towel toward her, hands shaking. "Then help me build it back. Check the shed with me tonight. There's a notebook in the toolbox with dates. I'll sit there. You can shut the door if you need to. But I'm bringing it out." She stared at him. The radio kept muttering. The promise wasn't a confession, but it was movement. A small crack. In the drawer beneath the list, A folded receipt she'd flagged earlier peeked out, edges curling. She slid it out and laid it between them. The ink smeared, showing a partial address. Jake's thumb hovered over it. He didn't pull back. Nora didn't either. "Tonight," he said again, softer, as if the words might fly away if he didn't hold them steady. Nora nodded once. At the same moment, the radio switched stations. The tension eased a notch. The air smelled faintly of burned sugar from the kettle, something real to anchor them. She picked up the crate of clothes again, dragging it toward the dining room. Jake watched her go, fingers tracing the mug rim. Silence remained. But now it had a rhythm. Nothing exploded, nothing resolved. Yet something important had shifted and promised motion. The kitchen light buzzed over the table where Nora had smoothed the receipt into place, the inked partial address catching the glare. Jake set the toolbox down with a clang, plucked the notebook from the bottom shelf, and laid it beside the yellowed paper. He didn't kneel. He broke the silence instead. "You left this for us," he said, tracing the torn edge as if it were a seam in a wound. Nora slid the receipt toward him. "It was in the drawer," she said. "Half a room and a date in line 2. You left it there, but you kept walking away every time I tried to follow." He rubbed the edge of his thumb along the spine before opening to a page where his handwriting leaned in uneven columns. "I saw the number," he said. "I saw the names. I also saw that I kept letting days stretch between us, pretending the silence hurt less than the fight. I didn't answer your texts because I was afraid the answer would be a demand I couldn't meet. So I let a stranger grow between us. You call that a pattern?" Nora's hand slammed onto the table. The metal rim rattled. "You call hiding notebooks and receipts a pattern?" Jake didn't flinch. He lifted a folded sheet from the notebook, the yellowed edge frayed where he'd bent it back. "I call it the way I avoided truth," he said. "I let myself believe you didn't need me involved, so I stopped knocking on the door. That was betrayal, not admitting I was drowning. I kept emotional distance because I feared you'd push me out if I admitted I doubted I could be enough for you or for the family. Do you see how that doubt cost me your trust?" Her fingers curled around the receipt as if she could crumple it into a confession. "You didn't even try to be honest," she said, voice tight. Nora dropped the crumpled receipt on the table and leaned over it. Fingers splayed, tracing the partial address as if it would finish the sentence for her. "This is where Aunt Lila waited for you twice, and you never showed up," she said, voice clipped. "You left this between us while you kept another notebook locked away." Jake didn't move. He kept his hands on the back of a chair, the notebook still open to the page she already read. Nora snatched it, flipped to the next entry, and read aloud, the words dragging themselves out of her mouth. "I told myself I was sparing them pain. If I explained my doubts, they'd come and I'd have to choose again." She bangs the spine down so hard the table rattles. "You were already choosing. You just never told anyone." The paper shakes in her hand. Jake goes to speak, but Nora cuts him off with the notebook pressed to his sternum. He swallows, but the words follow her. "I justified every silence. The chronicle is proof you let omission be a betrayal as sharp as commission." He lifts his shoulders, the way he always does when he wants time to think. But Nora keeps reading. Entry 73. "I told myself the truth would hurt more than the lie. So I hid the truth." She slides the page under his nose. "You literally wrote how you justified leaving them out. You let them believe the worst because you wouldn't accept that you were scared. It's not protection. It's abandonment." The air tightens. His jaw tightens in response. She reaches for his phone on the table and taps through until she finds the screenshot from earlier, The message from Aunt Lila open for him to see. She wrote me, Jake. You disappeared when Nora needed answers, and then you let silence become an excuse. How am I supposed to trust you did it by accident? Nora pushes the phone toward him. They feel betrayed on purpose and by omission. This isn't abstract anymore. It's right here. His breath hiccups. He tries to say, I never meant. But Nora shakes her head and thrusts the notebook back at him. You meant to stay hidden. That's what you documented for yourself. Stop trying to make your intentions sound like a defense. He kneels, palms pressed to the wood, as if anchoring himself while she keeps going. You wrote, if I don't answer, they'll stop asking and I can stay safe. That's not safety for them. That's leaving them to wonder why you vanished. Nora doesn't let him retreat. Call her now. She jerks her chin toward the phone. You can't keep reading your own justification without letting the people you hurt hear it. Let her hear what you wrote right now. Jake's finger hovers over the contact. He presses the screen. The call starts. Nora stays silent, watching the phone vibrate against the wood until Aunt Lila's voice crackles through. Lila? It's me. Jake. He drops his head, notebook still in hand, as Aunt Lila speaks. Nora can hear the tremor in her tone, the same tremor that matched the message. You never said a word. I felt buried by your silence. Jake swallows. He doesn't explain away the silence. He just answers, I kept telling myself I was protecting you by hiding. That was wrong. I'm showing you the pages now. She hears the intake of breath on the other end, the soft sound of someone realizing the truth is coming, not in some future apology, but through a trembling voice on a present call. The payoff doesn't fix years of distance, but as Nora watches his shoulders slowly uncurl, as Aunt Lila murmurs, I needed to hear you say that. Something shifts. Jake sets the notebook down, opens a fresh page, and begins to write a short letter, the pen scratching in real time. He writes, Dear Lila, I am sorry I let silence become betrayal. These entries prove I chose it. I won't hide them anymore. He slides the letter toward Nora so she can see every sentence. Nora takes the page, holds it between them, and the two of them read what were once private justifications now spelled out to everyone who needs to know. The tension easing just enough for a breath. Nora stayed seated, fingers curling around the receipt she'd left between them. The hallway light cast a strip of gold across the table, and Jake stepped out of the kitchen carrying a fat binder, a sheaf of papers tucked under his arm. He set it down beside the notebook, the spine brushing the edge of the receipt, and slid 2 envelopes toward her. I didn't just say I'd stop hiding, he said, voice low but steady. I brought you everything I've done in the last week. He flipped the binder open and spread a page with dates and bullet points. February 4th, Dr. Carter confirmed 3 p.m. Thursday, and I already deposited the session fees directly into their account. February 5th, mailed copies of the journal entries to the family mediator, with a note that I want Nora in the room when it happens. February 6th, texted Aunt Lila the summary of what I told you, asked her to read the entries with you if she'll meet. He tapped the paper, eyes locked on hers. All of it is here. I'm not waiting for a reminder anymore. Nora leaned forward until the binder pressed against the wooden table. She read the list slowly, then flicked her gaze up. You didn't just send it. You're showing me the texts? She asked, hand brushing the envelope. Jake reached for his phone, thumb hovering over the message app, still open from the earlier conversation. I just sent it, he said, hitting send. The screen flashed delivered as the little blue checkboxes appeared. You weren't the only one on that call. I told her I'd walk into Aunt Lila's living room with the notebook in my hand. He slid the phone toward her so she could see the timestamp. I also printed the receipt for the therapy account and tucked it behind the appointment page. He pulled the paper free, letting the soft green slip out. It's not pie in the sky. I paid it. The therapist confirmed your name is on the file. Nora gripped the edge of the table. Her jaw clenched, her knuckles whitened. You realize this is the first time I'm not the one forcing the door open? She said, voice shaking but rising. So, when you talk about justice, what does that look like beyond sending texts? Jake placed both palms on the binder. Justice is showing every person I've hurt that I'm willing to be seen, he said, and a tremor traveled through his fingers. I put together a letter to Aunt Lila and the rest of them. No excuses, just the truth and the steps I'm following. Therapy, sharing the chronicle with a mediator, paying for the help you need, and checking in with you before I do anything else. If you want, you can read the letter now. If you want, you can come to the mediator meeting. Nora snatched the letter, eyes scanning the words. She ran her thumb along the signature, then up to the paragraph where Jake wrote, I will not let silence be the covering anymore. She looked up, and something in her shoulders eased, just a hair. I'll hold you to it, she said, clipped. But you don't get to close the binder and pretend it's done. You stay in this room with me until the mediator's calendar is full. Jake nodded, and for a moment the tension shifted. Less of a standoff, more like a hand reaching across a chasm. He slid the notebook closer to Nora, the page with the latest entry facing her, and he placed the receipt next to it so she could see the address he promised to deliver to. I'll be right here, he said. Every step, we check it off together. Nora taps the video icon on her laptop while Jake slides the binder of steps he drafted toward her. The ring of the call fills the kitchen. Aunt Lila's face appears a heartbeat later, camera wobbling as she steadies her phone on the counter. Nora sets the receipt beside the binder. Her fingers don't shake when she places the chronicle entries in front of her and murmurs, I want you to hear the full version together. Aunt Lila leans forward, eyes scanning the same notebook Jake read aloud before. The moment she lands on an entry where Jake admits he avoided Nora's texts while Aunt Lila waited for him to show up, her jaw tightens. I was in that hallway, Nora, she says, voice sharp. You thinking it was just silence? I was waiting for a door that never opened. Jake nods, hands flat on the table. I know, he says. That silence left you both out there. It's why we're recording every time I'm late now, why I'm not stepping past your door without knocking and waiting for an answer. I've already logged the mediator date and shared it with both of you. Nora interrupts, her voice brittle. We're not just making a schedule. We need boundaries that actually keep us from sliding back. Starting now, no private conversations with Aunt Lila about Nora without Nora in the room. Every one of my sessions is hers to know the date and the topic. Jake, you and I review every entry shoved between us before it leaves this table. Aunt Lila raises her hand. And when we meet the rest of the family, I am speaking up about what I'm bearing witness to. I'm not letting anyone hush the damage. They need to hear that your pain wasn't imaginary. She glances at Jake. We need a transparent line, too. Proof that what you promised is what happens. Jake flips to the page where he wrote the plan for the upcoming mediator meeting, points to the section with the live video conference link and the note. Nora can pause. Aunt Lila can add. Mediator executes. He adds, there's a live transcript. I'll share it with both of you right after. Nora's breath hitched for a second. Then she takes a pen and circles the boundary definition she just read aloud. If anyone tries to change the subject away from what hurt us, we stop them. We enforce the rules. Aunt Lila lets out a slow breath, not relaxed, but steadier. I'll tell the cousins what we agreed right after this call. They need to know justice includes hearing what we suffered, not just what was convenient. The laptop hums as Jake opens a new document and types. Family meeting account. Attend, log, share chronicle entries. He slides it across the table. Nora takes it without looking away from the screen. We're not letting anyone edit out the pain anymore, she says, fingers steady. That's the justice we keep carrying. Aunt Lila nods, her throat working once. Then I'll be there. I'll watch you both keep the promise. They close the call with a plan. Mediator next Tuesday. Aunt Lila drafting a brief for the rest of the family. Nora and Jake building a shared calendar of transparency check-ins. The binder lies between them. The receipt, the chronicle entries, the new boundary checklist forming their anchor. The truth has nowhere left to hide, and justice includes every witness in the room. Nora set the heavy binder beside the laptop. Its pages fanned like a second pulse. Aunt Lila filled the rectangle of glass with a sharp gaze, the mediator's box blinking, ready, in a corner. Jake rubbed his palm over the table, then opened the notebook to the last entry. No one spoke while the recorder clicked on. Only the hum of the laptop fan and Aunt Lila's breathing on the screen. I'm done waiting for versions, Nora said, fingers flexing around the edge of the table. Read me what you wrote at the end, the day you decided you could disappear, because that is the truth I am carrying into the room with you. Jake breathed, and then lifted the page. October 25th, he read, voice rough. I planned a day to leave without a word, to stash this silence as a shield. I told myself Nora would heal faster if I took myself out of her view. I kept the chronicle locked in the toolbox because the story of my retreat felt unlovable. I was waiting for Aunt Lila to call me back to the house so I could say it was my absence that troubled her, not my betrayal. Aunt Lila's jaw tightened. You rehearsed every lie to keep me from seeing you run. Jake didn't stop. I told myself distancing you from the pain would protect you. The truth is the pain doubled every day. I didn't speak it. I am still here, and I'm still the one who decided to stay quiet. Because I was afraid honesty would crack the family wide open. Nora stood before the table, the binders a barrier between them. Her palm landed flat on the notebook. I didn't ask for cracked open. I asked for real. Her voice snapped, thin, sharp. Now that this guilt sits in the room with us, we make the rest of the family hear it too. We send this transcript to the mediator, and you, Jake, send a copy directly to Aunt Lila with your own typed note before tonight ends. Jake swallowed, nodding. The mediator typed quickly, then said, Transcript goes to the scheduled family group, Nora, Aunt Lila, and the therapist assigned to tomorrow's session. Nora will add your summary of boundaries to the packet, and Jake, you'll confirm receipt to Lori in writing. Aunt Lila lifted her hand, then lowered it. Truth hurts, she said, every syllable clipped. But you read it, and you're still accountable. Nora, if we keep this hurt at the center of every meeting, we can keep the lies outside. Nora sank back into the chair. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I'm asking for equal truth. We keep a running log. Today's entry is final. No more hidden drafts. Jake exhaled, then reached over, placing the notebook between Nora and the laptop screen. I'll send the email now, he said. I'll tell Aunt Lila I read the last page aloud, and I'll wait for her reply before I do anything else. Nora nodded once. After the reply, we mark this chapter closed. Then we sit down with the mediator, read the transcript, and decide what honesty looks like from here. The mediator's box chimed, confirming the transcript was already uploading. Aunt Lila's voice softened, but only slightly. "Pain comes with truth," she said. "We're all still raw, but I'll stay in the room as long as you keep saying what you did today." A small payoff sang through the tension. Nora clicked her pen, then slid it across the table to Jake. "Write the note while the truth's ringing," she said. "Keep the words in the same room, the same air." He took the pen, fingers still shaking, and began typing on his tablet. The final confession hung in the air, solid, undeniable, and the family leaned into it together. A thin hush settles as the mediator's camera blinks, the room a ring of chairs facing the table where the notebook lies open like a wound. Nora's hand, steady now, rests beside the receipt and binder, fingers brushing the edge of the page where Jake's voice has poured out remorse. Aunt Lila appears on the screen, eyes glassy but clear, absorbing each syllable. Jake inhales once, then begins the final reading, each line soaked with what he neglected, each confession a small crack, letting the old grief pour through. When he finishes, the only sounds are the settling of chairs and the distant city breathing outside, and the mediator's soft click as the transcript saves itself into the shared fold Nora insisted on. Nora rises, not to forgive, but to promise a new rhythm with her feet planted beside Jake's shadow. The notebook is closed, its pages now shared, the receipt still between them. And somewhere in that stillness, the family's future is made, because nothing can go back to the silence that carved their wounds.